What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to the Let's Build the U.S.S. Voyager Season 1, Episode 30. I'm Zero Elite, and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me and supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Today we've got about an 18-minute episode. We're going to be working on our corridors. Well, not the corridors, but the turbo lifts just a little bit more today. And then we'll also be hopping out on the outside of the ship, and we're going to start working on the pylons. So without further ado, let's go ahead and we're going to dive right into it. So what I'm trying to do right now is determine the center, the very, very dead center of the ship. And that's that block right there. So we're going to be going off that, and we're going to be bringing that straight back. And essentially what we're doing right now is we're determining our main deck of the lower hull. It's going to get a little bit dark here for a minute, and I'm sorry about that, but what we're doing here is not complicated. You're just bringing this straight back. That's all we're doing. And this is going to kind of give us an idea of what we have to work with here. We're so close to being right where we need to be. We're off literally by one block. So to fix that, I'm just on this level of the turbo lift. I'm just going to bring it down by a block. We're just minding our pattern, doing the same thing that we did in the last episode. Then we have to thicken up our roof by one. To be perfectly honest with you, we don't even have to redo the whole turbo lift. You can have cheats like this, and to be honest, who's gonna know other than you? And it's like, well, that's not perfect. And it's like, look, if you want to have it be completely perfect, you are more than welcome to go in and redo the entire turbo lift, because I know that there's some people that have the that they have to have the perfect pattern in place and whatnot. Like, to me, like, that does matter most of the time, but like little things like this, when it's all said and done and you have the whole ship built out, you're never gonna see it. So it's literally, it's a waste of work is what I'm trying to get at here. Is that you're gonna put yourself through the pain of rebuilding the whole turbo lift just to get everything to match up perfectly, and you don't really have to do all that. Most important thing here is just having this deck in place, our main deck, because we got to know where we're going. Because this main deck is going to connect to the shuttle bay. Eventually we'll have a turbo lift going from the shuttle bay down to those corridors, or excuse me, not the corridors, the turbo lifts that'll bring us up to the saucer section. So now we're going to start working on the pylons. And I'm going to go back here so you guys can get your placement on our cut line. You can see where I'm going here off the last long strip before we go down to a pattern of 4. I'm going off this row right here. Thinking that's where we're going to start it. Remember, following our rule that if we do one thing on one side, do it on the other, and do it right after you make that change. This way it's fresh in your mind, and we're narrowing down the chance of making a mistake. And I know that we're gingerly building out Voyager here, but you know, I say this all the time. What we're doing here, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and we want to take our time and just build this thing out the best way that we can. And I already have an idea that I'm trying to make the pylons 3 blocks wide to go with that middle line for the lower hull. I'm not 100% sure on the pattern though. What I'm basically kind of building out right now is the bracket where the pylons bend. Is more or less what we're doing here. And then once we do that last line of gray, then we're going to bring it back. I know I had started counting this out slow, but to be honest with you, I think we're only going to bring this out to the tip, and then we'll start adding rows to it. Because we're right there. Yep, we're right there. So now we're one before that. And there's a way to double check this with our builder lines. So I think we're about right here. So let's bring that over. Yep. So we just have to do the same thing on the right side. So right off this row here is where that's going to have to meet as well. So you don't even have to count it out. There's ways around that. And it never fails, I'll have somebody where I'm doing something just like this. They're like, I need to know the exact count. And I'll tell them, like, okay, we'll go off of your cut line like I'm going off of. They're like, well, I want to have exactly what you have. And I'm just thinking about it, and it's like, if I'm not worried about that, and I'm showing you literally how I'm doing it, like, just do it the same way, and you'll have exactly what I have. If you followed the steps I did on the sides here, everything, you will be matched up. But look, at the end of the day, if it's off by 1 or 2 blocks, who cares? It's not that big of a deal. It's not that serious. There's going to be variations here and there. When Enterprise D Season 2 comes out, just wait. I'm going to show you guys some of the variations between the rebuild and the original. And if I didn't point them out, you guys would never know. That's kind of where I'm at now on my builds, where it's I've just noticed after doing the Enterprise D the way that I did it for when I rebuilt it, that yeah, this stuff is important, but it's not super vital. As long as you're following the overall steps that I'm going over with you guys, this can be done. Doesn't have to be 100% one for one perfect. Because like I tell you right now, none of my builds are perfect. There's going to be mistakes somewhere, here or there. But I have these steps in place to try to avoid that from happening. But all I'm just trying to say here is that if there is a small error here and there, it's honestly not a big deal. It's nothing to stress out about, because again, it's just defeating the purpose on why I'm building these ships out. I'm doing it to relax and to have fun and to de-stress. I'm not worried about all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, you know, I want it to be as close as I can to perfect, but if there's no way to avoid it. There's going to be mistakes. We're human. People make mistakes. Nobody is perfect all the time, all day, every day. Nobody. So, those of you that have to be perfect, I mean, you don't have to be. And it's okay not to be perfect. It's perfectly fine. But that's why I love building with Minecraft, because there's no right or wrong way in doing this stuff. So literally what I'm doing right now is I'm going back, I'm looking at my reference material of Voyager, and I'm trying to figure out if what I have will work. So really trying to get that shape of the pylons right. You see what I added on the back end is supposed to be that same bracket where the pylon bends. Really, it should be on this other side here. I should be building it going in this way. So it's like right up on this piece, but when I did the first go around, I didn't want it to be like super hugging the ship. I wanted there to be just a little bit of a lip, but I don't know how I feel about it at this point. So I think what we're going to try now, going back in with a cut, we're going to do a pattern of 3 going in and see if that gives us the transition point that we want cutting inwards towards the back. Because one thing with Voyager, and this is where I said that we were going to get into this, that there's like this huge piece that kind of hangs off the back that wraps around the shuttle bay, and it's basically just, it's the pylon itself. So like Voyager technically just has one pylon. It's just one big pylon that bends on the end on each side. So we're going to try to go with this pattern of 3 and see where it takes us. Might work, might not be long enough. We might have to shift to 4 maybe. It could possibly work. I know if we 3 is kind of the lowest number I want to go down to. I don't think if I went with a pattern of 2 that would work. You can see I'm just testing it out now. We're going on the other side of that bracket, where essentially where the pylon bends upwards. So we're going to go with a pattern of 3 and see how that works. Might work out pretty well. That's why I say sometimes you just got to throw something down, see how it looks. A lot of this stuff, you have to visualize it. You have to visualize the outline of what we're making. And you have to look at your reference material and compare the two and try to determine if what you're doing is close enough to the source material. That's the best way I can describe what we're doing right now. This is why I say, you know, knowing your patterns, knowing the shapes that you can get with doing certain patterns. So I'm hoping that using this pattern of 3 going forward and 3 going back is going to work out. But the kicker of it is also going to be that we're really not going to know until we get a chunk of this built out to see if that pattern of 3 will actually work out. Looks pretty good. And I noticed it's taken us a little bit to get to this point. And you know, I said it in the beginning of this tutorial series. There are things that were super easy with Voyager, and then other things not so much, that was actually a little bit challenging. And I can honestly say this about every build that I've done in Minecraft. Every build has its own sets of challenges. And the biggest problem that I had with Voyager was the top part of the saucer and then the sides of the lower hull. I had a hard time with it, and eventually and also the backbone of the neck a little bit, but honestly it wasn't too bad. I don't feel I spent nearly as much time on the backbone as I did on the top part of the saucer and also the sides, because we're approaching the point where we're going to start shaving off the sides here and redoing the front end of the lower hull here because it's just too wide. So now looking at our reference material, like the pylons, they come in at an angle and then they shoot downward kind of, and they wrap around the shuttle bay. So that's kind of what I'm trying to go for right now, and I'm hoping that this pattern of 2 might work, but I might have to shift it over to maybe a pattern of 3, but 3 might be too much. Because here's the problem, is that the pattern, we can't use a pattern of 1. The cut will be too drastic. And a pattern of 3 might be too much. It might elongate the area more than what we need. And that's kind of the idea, but it's too stubby. So maybe we can add a couple more rows of 3 to see how that looks, maybe. I don't know. The other problem too, you got to be careful with this area that we're at right now, because we don't want to make it too long. Because yeah, this area has some length to it, but it's not overly long. Like, I'll give you an example, and I'm not saying anything negative about the ship, but like, as an example, the Disco Era Enterprise, the backside of the shuttle bay, it almost has a carrier quality to it, the way that it looks, because it's so stretched out. Voyager has that a little bit, but it's not stretched out as far. So we kind of got to be careful with that, and making sure that this piece is not too big, but also it's not too stubby either. But where we're at right now, that's not actually looking terrible. I think we can maybe make that work. But what we're going to do first is that we're going to fill in the bottom row, because remember, our pylons are 3 blocks long, or 3 blocks high, because we're matching the very middle of our lower hull. That looks pretty good. You're going to do the same thing on the left side. We're literally just following the pattern that we have above us. As long as you do that, you cannot make a mistake. If you did, you're not following your pattern above you. She's slowly starting to get there. But you probably see what I mean now. Looking at the ship from the back end, when we zoom out, Voyager's like 45 pounds overweight. We've got to trim some of that down, but we will. We'll get there. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for me today. If you have any questions regarding today's episode, be sure to drop a comment below. Definitely love hearing from everybody, as well as if you have any build suggestions that you want to see. A lot of cool stuff coming up in the future. We've got Voyager Season 2, the Enterprise D Season 2, as well as the Excelsior 2 class, and also the Enterprise A 2.0 once we hit 1,000 subscribers. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for me today. I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in today's episode. I hope everyone has a happy and safe week, and I'll catch you in the next episode. And of course, what did you make in Minecraft today? Let me know in the comments section. Post your photos in Discord. Love to see them.